Yep. Looks like we're right at the beginning of a game here.
Yep, yep.
I'm curious to see this matchup play out because Jun feels like it would be a little bit ahead in the matchup, just a little bit grindier, a little bit better fighting on the ground. And if that's the case, then Rug, who's sort of been the flagship deck, I would say, of the Open Series for the last year and change, may be on the decline.
Yeah, the Jun deck, I think we have our names mixed up top there. But the Jun deck definitely has access to answers for all of the Rug deck's creatures, which is really awkward. Abrupt Decay can obviously kill Tarmogoyf, Liliana can kill Nimble Mongoose, Death Shaman can shrink both of them, yep. Lightning Bolt and Punishing Fire for Delver of Secrets. It's tough out there.
Yeah. As you see a Spell Pierce drawn for Joseph.
Jack starting on a basic land is also a big step. Jund, does have spells that cost a fair bit of mana, so you want to get off of 1 or 2 lands. Swamp Deathrite Shaman is probably about the best start he can hope for in the matchup, I imagine.
And it appears as though Joseph has brought in 3 copies of Submerge. And again, Submerge is fine. I mean, he's playing against a green creature deck, but it's not quite the same as it is against in the Rug Mirror because Jun kind of has to play a controlling role in the matchup. That's true. So, tempoing them out is challenging because they're often not committing very much to the board. They're powerful cards against your spot removal or picking apart your curve. And so Submerge is fine, but it's not going to be as good here as it is often against green creature decks.
I think another pressing issue with Submerge is the fact that Jund, if the player is smart, can very easily play around it by relying on Grove and Deathrite Shaman for green mana and not presenting you with a forest.
Yeah.
It's actually not that difficult. Decks that heavily lean on forest can do that in many circumstances.
So Jack with the Badlands.
It's a wasteland. I imagine it's going to target Badlands. Huh? Punishing Fire in response, it looks like. He's floating red. He was about to just immediately play a spell, I think. He's going to go with Punishing Fire. He has a Lightning Bolt in his hand, so he could get dazed here. Looks like he's going to get Spell Pierced instead.
Yeah, but you're happy making these kind of exchanges because your removal's so redundant. The big threat is Joseph adding actually more creatures to the board and being able to outpace your removal. If he's doing this kind of stuff, I feel like this is a fight that Jun is well set up to win.
The only real concern I would have here is if he had had a Daze and a Tarmogoyf. That would have been like a pretty rough spot to be in.
Yeah, it's the additional pressure that matters.
That puts him in a pretty... he has to have it, Otherwise, we're just going to continue going. If we have a land in hand, then I'm very, very fine with just tossing the Punishing Fire there. And he did have a Wooded Foothills already at the ready.
So mulling if he wants to play his Wooded Foothills or his Bayou in hand. I know he has Confidant in hand.
Yeah.
The real thing, of course, is fairly obvious to say, but really needs to find a removal spell for that Delver. Because once that Delver's out of play, all the soft permission, all the dazes and snares and what have you, in Joseph's hand just go way down in value.
Looks like Jack's trying to decide whether he wants to do it this turn, whether he wants to cast that guy.
I would lead with Bolt here.
I think so too. The easiest way to die in the matchup is to just let them get ahead and stumble awkwardly.
And Jack agrees. Leaving Joseph with a hand of what appears to be Snare, Daze, and Ponder.
It's not that impressive. I don't think we should play our fetch land here if we were going to Ponder. We should Ponder first. I imagine we would snap Wasteland again, right?
Probably, yeah.
Just hoping to mana screw our opponent out.
Submerge, Trop, and Fetch. This feels like a shuffle to me.
Yep.
Well, I guess he can draw the Submerge and then shuffle next turn, but
I wouldn't do that. I don't think you even want it.
Well, particularly when Jack doesn't even have any forests in play.
Right, he doesn't have a forest or a creature. Those are 2 necessary things for a Submerge.
And there's a potentially threatening card in Nimble Mongoose.
Does Jack have a Liliana? I don't see one, I don't think. He has Dark Confidant and some spell. I can't tell what that one is. He does present a Grove, not a Forest.
It appears he has Loam in his hand.
Loam? That is what I was thinking it might be. I'm not sure.
So you're going to see Joseph here shuffle away the 2 lands he knows are on the top. I believe our Goose is well thresholded at this point.
Yeah, he's certainly up there.
But yeah, this is the exact scenario you discussed earlier, where Jack really doesn't have to commit a force to the table.
He can cast basically all of his spells. His real concern is just in solving this Nimble Mongoose.
Alright, so that drew a snare, and now Job is down to just Submerge in hand.
To the main stage. That's Owen left for Swag.
Nimble Mongoose in for 3, and another Mongoose, a great draw.
Yeah, that's tough. Now we'll need something like Running Lilianas.
Just a defensive Bloodbraid Elf wouldn't be bad.
Yep, Bloodbraid Elf would also work. This is also the kind of situation where a card like Relic of Progenitus or Nihil Spellbound can be surprisingly effective against Rug.
Yeah.
Obviously, Relic is probably not where you want to be in the Punishing Jund deck because of Punishing Fires and Tarmogoyfs,
Right.
but Nihil Spellbound is a reasonable sideboard card. I know BBD's playing them, and against the Jund deck, I might consider bringing them in.
No, I mean, I was a big fan of Graveyard Hate when I was playing Burn against Rug.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to manage when their Goyfs and Nimble Mongoose are not.
You're
the
just
same
racing
card.
your draw step against their creatures, and
Right.
their creatures are pretty fast sometimes.
Yep. But Jack definitely in trouble here if he can't find an Edict. As Deathbred Shaman.
It's not going to do it. Oh, don't. No, it's a forest.
So now Submerge is on.
Yep. He's going to Life from the Loam.
And this is going to lock it up pretty much as Submerge gets rid of a chump blocker, and then Deathbred Shaman is the draw step.
Oh, he can dredge Life from the Loam to not draw Deathbred
I guess.
Shaman.
That presents different
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah. He's got his choice. Sort of like choose your own adventure.
Right. All paths lead to doom.
If he takes 6 here, he'll go to 4, and his Deathbred Shaman does not actually gain him out of surviving. It looks like Joseph's just attacking and then submerging. Okay. He took the damage and then he submerged afterwards, so that the Deathbred Shaman will not be available for block plus gain.
Yep.
So, on 4, Jack is needing to draw something that's not a Deathbred Shaman. Unfortunately, that's what he's going to draw.
His fate is sealed here.
If he had not Life from the Loam, he would have had the option of Punishing Fire his own Deathbred Shaman. It's a curious line that might be correct in that spot.
Well, yeah, it's just it's Submerged even on his radar as a thing that could happen.
Yeah. I think he didn't expect it, probably. He knows to now, of course.
Yeah.
And he'll probably play the third game much more carefully, as we both expect there to be a third game at this point.
Deathbred Chumps. We have a bolt to finish it off.
No, just a third Nimble Mongoose.
Sure.
Now, if I'm Jack here, I'm just complaining about not drawing my Parish. Put the fear in him.
Right.
You can't just play all these Mongooses. This is ridiculous.
And now we're going on to a third game. Yeah, if there's any threat in the Rug Delver deck that's challenging for Jund to answer, it's definitely Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah, you're really all in on your Lilianas, and beyond that, you just have Tarmogoyfs and Bloodbraid Elves to try and block.
Which is a reasonable set of tools.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong.
It's more than many people have.
Oh yeah, more than I ever do. but you know, it's not Tarmogoyf and Delver Secrets are fairly easy for Jund to answer, but no Mongoose is pretty threatening.
Back in the days before Terminus and Supreme Verdict, Nimble Mongoose used to rule the roost in the Esper Stoneblade Rug matchup. It was a tough card to beat. Things have changed a little bit.
They
since
have,
then.
yeah.
Principally, the cards just named. Engineered Explosives, another reasonable answer to Nimble Mongoose that is available to all colors.
So what are the sideboard cards that our Jund player here has afforded to him?
Looking over at a Jack sideboard, he has access to, I mean, I wouldn't want the fourth Bloodbraid Elf against a Stifle Wasteland deck, probably. That seems a little greedy. Pyroblast is pretty reasonable, as I think you can really fold up a Rug deck when you get a Brainstorm sometimes. I don't know if I'd board in all of them. Obviously, they make your Bloodbraid Elves way worse, but it's a reasonable line of contention. Clearly, he boarded in Life from the Loam, which I agree with, generally a card you want.
Just to try to go for a Wasteland lock and give you a little more durability against Wasteland.
You also have ways to actually manipulate the cards. You can, utilize Liliana with it. It's a way to boost it. Trying to hit, like actually being able to hit a Grove if it gets Wastelanded, like that's kind of important, I imagine.
Yeah.
That said, the Punishing Fire engine is not really that excellent against Rug. I wouldn't be surprised if he did not board in his third copy that's in the sideboard.
Yeah, it's really only good against Delver of Secrets, which is already the card you're best suited to answer.
It's also good in Tarmogoyf on Tarmogoyf fights.
Okay.
Which can crop up.
Sure. On the other side here, we saw the 3 copies of Submerge. He has Rough Tumble, which, I mean, it is kind of good against Jack's creatures, but I'm not sure if he wants to be taking that kind of control road in the matchup, He has his own Loam, another spell piece, and another spell pierce, rather, sorry, and then Extraction, Pyroblast, and Ancient Grudge. So the Submerge is definitely his best card by a lot, and he may want Rough and Tumble, though I would advise against.
Sure. Would you bring in all 3 Submerges? I feel like I would only want 2. I wouldn't want to overload what I'm doing. We have a lot of effective answers against our opponent's creatures. Between like Forked Bolt and Lightning Bolt, those are really great solutions to Confidant and Deathrite Shaman already. Yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of the soft permission in the Rug deck here in this matchup because it's so kind of attrition-y and grindy, and all of the Jund deck's cards kind of do the same thing. So I would be inclined to cut some of the Dazes and Pierces and put in Submerge. Not that Submerge is great, but I think I'd rather be there.
I think that's reasonable. We know from Game 2 that Joseph certainly kept in at least 1 Pierce. So if he cut anything, I imagine he cut the Dazes, that would indicate, unless he did like a 2-1 thing, which would be kind of strange.
Sure.
I think most people are inclined to board out Daze in sideboard games. It happens a lot. Maybe that's what he did.
Maybe it's supposed to be force. I mean, what haymakers does Jack really present? If he's going to win, it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing, But we shall see.
Maybe you just board out 1 of each.
The sampler?
The sampler. I'll take the trios, please.
All right, both players keep 7.
Jack with a fetch. Swamp Deathrite Shaman, perhaps?
Not a bad opening. It's got Duress.
Yeah, I see a Duress. That's interesting. I guess it follows the same logic as being able to Pyroblast a Brainstorm in some respects.
Yeah.
Taking away a key cantrip.
Clearing Bolt out of the way, too.
Yeah, it can clear a removal spell or a counter spell.
And information is so valuable against Rug, because knowing what you have to play around is a big part of it.
For example, Jack has a Wasteland in his hand already, knowing if he should turn 2 waste a land or not, that can matter a lot.
All right, so you're saying a fetch and a Volk, Surgical Extraction, Submerge, Spell Pierce, Ponder, and Nimble Mongoose.
I think Joseph may have tunnel visioned himself on seeing cards that he can board cards against, but not necessarily cards that he should board cards against.
Sure.
Like Surgical Extracting something to like keep Loam or Punishing Fire out of the way is really not that big a deal.
Yeah. I mean, here, assuming that his hand's functional, I would like to take Ponder and then
waste his Trop when he goes for it. Yeah.
But I'm not sure how much he cares about that Submerge. It's hard to tell.
Depending on his hand, I know it has a few lands, so he may be hurting for spells. But that said, if he can, just take the Ponder, waste the Trop, and the Nimble Mongoose is just a 1/1 for like 4 turns or so, that would be ideal, I imagine.
Yeah, and he's going to take Ponder.
I see Bolt Punishing Fire as his other spells. Just 2 lands, Wasteland, Bolt Punishing Fire, so.
And Joseph has just drawn Ponder.
Easy game. He makes the turn 1 Ponder instead of Nimble Mongoose.
Finds Trop, Brainstorm, Spell Snare.
That's not bad. I'd be
No,
happy with
yeah,
those.
we're definitely keeping that.
Question is the order. I think we want to leave the Brainstorm on top so that it can't get hit by another discard spell. Probably, I don't know if we want the land. I guess we might. I think going lands, Brainstorm Spell Snare is fine. It looks like that's exactly what he
Yeah.
did.
A little surprised to see him not lead with Nimble Mongoose.
I'm surprised, but I don't mind it, to be honest.
And there's a big draw there for Jack there in Liliana Vale. Now he knows about Spell Pierce, so the actual being able to land it is going to be the tricky part here, but cleans up the Nimble Mongoose. And again, he's going to be loath to commit creatures to the table knowing about that Submerge. And so his plan here hopefully is to use his removal spells to contain everything else and then eventually land Liliana to take care of the Nimble Mongoose.
One thing he can do is go ahead and play, the Wasteland out, because that'll make it very difficult for his opponent to actually maintain Spell Pierce, knowing he could lose the land that's untapped. It might incline him to play out his hand a little more aggressively, and that way you actually just get to cast your spell. Obviously, Jack doesn't mind throwing away a Wasteland on a land. He just needs to not be under a lot of pressure if he's going to do something like that.
Yeah.
He's going to play a Badlands and pass. Joseph drawing the Brainstorming left on top. I imagine this is the turn where he's just going to go Nimble Mongoose and then pass with 1-up.
Yep.
He can Spell Pierce a Liliana. He can Brainstorm on the end step, should he so choose. And he can Spell Snare a potential blocker like Tarmogoyf. Bayou, not exactly the nuts.
Well, you were talking about the Wasteland and how it. Okay, we're just gonna tag. I was gonna say, we could just sandbag that Wasteland, and then if Joseph's still playing the way where he's like going to be holding up 1 mana to Pierce, then you go 4th land is Wasteland you now land Liliana.
I like that line. I don't like Wastelanding this Trop here when we know he has Flooded Strand in his hand. Like, he's just going to replace it basically immediately. Joseph waiting on his Brainstorm. I like that. Conservative. I think that's fine. I might cast it now.
Well, I think he wants to hold up Snare and Pierce potentially.
Snare and Pierce.
And his hand's fine. I mean, what action is he digging for here exactly?
Sure, that's fine. I mean, I would be wanting to get my Nimble Mongoose flipped next turn ideally. And I think we have like 4 in the graveyard right now.
Yeah,
Right?
if it actually gets to a spot where he can flip his Nimble Mongoose, that matters a lot, of course. But
right now he has Ponder, Trop Island, so I guess we only have 3 cards. That's fair. If we had 4, I would want to go ahead and contribute the 5th one so that we can just get there on the next turn relatively easily. Remember, Surgical Extraction is also just a free card in the graveyard if you want to supersize.
Right. A 3rd land from Jack, a Bayou.
It is a forest he's gone ahead and put into play.
Yeah, I don't think he's worried about Submerge. I mean, he has no creatures, so.
Yeah. He's going to Duress. Joseph's going to hide the sweet goods with Brainstorm.
Well, his hand's all spells. He's going to get something, it seems.
Ooh, just peeled 2 Tarmogoyfs. And a Delver. He can throw back a lot of spells here. Yeah, this hand is going to be a depressing one for Jack to see, as the Delver is pretty much the only card he can handle effectively. The casting Surgical Extraction?
Is he just emptying out his spells right now?
It's kind of weird.
Curious to see what this leads into.
Well, if he had Ponder, Trop, added Brainstorm, Surgical's the 5th card, Flooded Strand is the 6th. So he'll only need 1 more to go ahead and put Nimble up. I don't think you need to do that necessarily first, though. I mean, I suppose it's fine. I guess his theory being, I'm going to go ahead and do it now because I don't want him remembering if he has a Wasteland in his hand to go ahead and play it. But I guess he just played his land for turn. That doesn't really make that much sense to me either. Maybe he's going for the Spell Pierce in response and to actually get to 7.
Yeah.
On the
No,
spot.
that's what I meant by emptying out.
Okay, yeah. He's not doing that. Well, I mean, it's getting discarded, so yeah, okay. That is effectively the same difference.
Right.
That's fine.
Not the best use of extraction there, but
It's probably
at least
work
it's gonna
out.
get it's gonna get that nimble mongoose threshold.
Yep. Jack not that excited about what he just saw.
It's a lot of removal to slog through. And pacing his threats against Liliana is challenging too.
Yeah, if he has a third land, that'll get a lot easier, but he knows he'll be able to force Jack to have Liliana and a removal spell in order to get a good guy.
And that fetch line, I believe, puts us up to threshold this turn.
Yeah, he has the spell snare still on top of the deck. If he fetches, that should put him to 7 cards. And he no longer has to fear Wasteland. So I guess that Surgical Extraction on Wasteland, when you know your land light and you just have double Tarmogoyf, like you want to guarantee you get those guys down.
Yeah.
Except he's going with Delver. Interesting. I think this slowdown favors Jack. He can now just go, Bolt Delver, or he's getting Spell Snared. Well, could have bolted Delver to dodge Spell Snare, but it works out the same since he can go land, Bolt Delver, Liliana. It doesn't get Spell Snare. Joseph likely settling in with the Spell Snare, hoping to get a Tarmogoyf later.
Right. I would find it really hard to resist the urge of just cracking the Flood Strand, getting the threshold, and playing a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I agree. I probably would have just done that. Especially considering we no longer have to fear Wasteland. If Wasteland was still a factor, then that's another story.
Right.
Then I still might do it. I just feel scared.
Yeah, right. So I assume we're going to be funding a tropical island here. And I assume now we're going to be trying to land our Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, it seems like we can't really do anything else. The Spell Snare will now probably function as just Liliana bait.
Yep.
Also possible that was Joseph's intent all along, perhaps seeing the future. Tarmogoyf for Jack.
Yep.
That's a good one. He's pretty happy about that. Land, Tarmogoyf, bolt you, pump Liliana. No, we're gonna hold them. I guess that's fine too. The thing I don't like here is like when you pitch the land in this fashion, like it just tells your opponent that you have like a good one. There's only so many it could be. Obviously, it has to be a removal spell, since it's not a creature you've already played to the board.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're not going to be able to get like that Tarmogoyf on Tarmogoyf trade a lot of the time.
And this is going to be a devastating sequence where we see Submerge on Jack's Tarmogoyf, taking out Liliana, and then playing a second Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And especially effective against the card Lightning Bolt.
Yes. And we drew another Submerge, so
we get to do it again. I hope Jack likes his next turn because it's going to be taking for a while. Tarmogoyf grows to 5/6 off Planeswalker.
Can't even wait to untap, just wants to fire it off.
Showboats. Personally, I prefer to play those in the upkeep.
Sure. Just give him the hope.
Yeah. Uh, 10 puts Jack to 7. Now, even if he does get the block Goyf, bolt your Goyf play, which Joseph can reasonably assume is a potential thing here, he'll still be able to die to a lightning bolt at any time.
Yeah, and Joseph has all day to find something else as long as his remaining Tarmogoyf doesn't need an Abrupt Decay or a Liliana or some such.
Grow with the Burn Wolves, perhaps? No? Abrupt Decay? No? Him. Okay.
All right.
Polluted Delta is gone. Man down. Not sure really why we didn't go ahead and just play that. We can only be punished by, like a him or something. Perhaps hoping to incentivize a Thoughtseize against
and there's 2 bolts. There it is.
Jack looks a little downtrodden about that loss. Tough one to take, obviously.
I mean, the sequencing there in those early turns is very, very challenging, right?
Yeah.
Like how he wants to pace that game, and Joseph was fairly lucky to